What's good, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. In this video, I will be showing you how to create this Jordan Retro 11 hyper realistic sneaker cake. So let's get into it. First things first, this template package is available on my website at graciescakes.co, or I will put the link in the description, and you could just purchase this entire template and just follow this video as we go. Just a few things to do before starting your cake. First things first, I would cut out all the templates out of the template package, and then I would create the sole of the sneaker cake. That is what you see I am stacking my cake onto right now. So basically all I did was I cut out the sole template of the package. I think it's maybe number 1. And then I will take that piece of paper and I will place it on a foam board and then basically just cut it out and then start stacking my cake onto it. So as you can see, I'm stacking my cake using a vanilla bean cake with a dark chocolate ganache. When it comes to frosting this cake, I don't feel like the frosting should be too thick. And then also, buttercream is not a good frosting to use for this sneaker cake because we will be working on it for a while. So I would suggest you to use a dark chocolate ganache, any type ganache that's really firm and also yummy at the same time. So yep, pretty much got my cake stacked, and then I will be taking template number 2. Oh yeah, see the numbers there? And I will be cutting the sides of the cake to the shape of the template. Once I've got that side of the cake pretty much perfect, it's time to flip the template on the other side of the cake, making sure it's nice and even, and doing the same thing, shaping that side of the cake to match the template. When it comes to sculpting this cake, there are 2 main things to remember. Always sculpt a frozen or semi-frozen cake, because sculpting a room temperature cake is just a disaster waiting to happen. And then 2, using a shaving method more than cutting away from the cake is the best thing you could actually do. Because let's say, for example, if you cut away more than you should be cutting away, there's no way you can add that back to the cake. I mean, you could possibly add it back with ganache, but it's actually adding more time. Yeah, it's not fun. And now here I'm doing one of the most crucial parts of sculpting this cake is rounding off the back of the sneaker cake. I've seen so many sneaker cakes on the market where the back of the sneaker cake is squared. No, it's not square. So here is an example where I'm just shaving a little off at a time. So just please remember, please shave away from the cake. No matter if it takes long, this is the most important part of this cake. Once this part is done, it's like smooth sailing. And now here I'm just making sure that the front of the sneaker cake has like that little swoop or whatever at the front. Just so it has like that really realistic look, like as though someone was walking in it. I don't know. It just makes it look so much better. Also, a pro tip on when you're sculpting your cakes, putting plastic wrap below your cake makes cleanup so much easier. Also, I totally forgot to film this part, but at the top of the cake, like normally where the foot would go, I would sculpt all of the cake out of there just so it could make it realistic as possible. Sorry, I did not get that part on camera. Finally, we've got the sculpting done, and here comes the easy part, ganaching our entire cake. So all I'm doing right now is just using my dark chocolate ganache, and I will cover my entire cake with dark chocolate ganache, making sure everything is smooth using my flexible smoother. Now here's a super tip from me to you. Don't tell anyone else. I normally use a flexible smoother when it comes to making sure that the ganache is nice and smooth on my sneaker cakes. And then once I've pretty much got the entire cake as smooth as I can get it with the flexible smoother, I will take some distilled water using my gloves, and I will basically rub the cake down with a little cold water, and it makes the ganache so smooth. And yes, my daughter wanted to be a part of this video. So the crazy thing is about it that we filmed the beginning of the transition, but she had to go to bed. So we couldn't finish the transition. So I wasn't able to put it on my other social media, but I am able to put it in this video. Anyway, let's move on to template number 3, which is the tongue of the sneaker cake. All I did was basically just cut out the template and then add it to the fondant, and then just cut out the fondant to match the template, and then just placed it onto the cake. And then using the guidelines on the template, you can use your stitching tool and add those stitches onto the tongue of the sneaker. Next, we will be covering the sides and the back of the sneaker cake. It's just a long flap of fondant, so it's not a part of the template package. And then just make sure follow exactly what I'm doing here. So I'm just making that cut, and then I am using the side of the sneaker cake just to gauge where I should be trimming the fondant. So once that part is done, I will do the same exact thing on the other side. Just a reminder, when it comes to rolling out all of the fondant for these sneaker cakes, it's best to roll out the fondant as thin as possible. Not as thin where you can see your finger through it, but thin enough because we are adding so many pieces of fondant onto this cake. We don't want the cake to look bulky, and that's what really takes away the hyper-realistic look of the sneaker. So yeah, please keep the fondant as thin as you can. Here I am just trimming the top of the sneaker cake and then just massaging it down to make sure it's nice and seamless, because we will be adding the black top. Next, we will be adding another piece of fondant, and this is where template, I think number 4, comes in. After rolling the long rectangular piece of fondant, applying it to the cake, making sure the sides, front, and the back is completely covered, and then massaging it into place. Once we've got our fondant pretty much into place, now I'm using my X-Acto and I will start to trim the excess fondant off, and then I will grab template number 4 and pretty much follow the template to create the design of the shoe. Also, I'm kind of new to this YouTube thing, so I don't know what I should call you guys. Like, what should I call you guys? Comment below. I don't want it to just be Cake Fam or Cake Jam, or I don't know, Gracie's Cakers. I don't know. Give me a good name for you all. I feel like I want to build a family here on YouTube, so let's give it a name. Comment below and let me know what you think. Now that I've got the design coming into play, all I'm doing right now is just making sure that my fondant is pretty much seamless. We don't want to see any of the ganache poking through. That's all I'm doing right now, using a little bit of water and just massaging the fondant to make sure it's nice and seamless, and that's about it. Now that I've got one side of the sneaker cake pretty much done, I will be repeating the same step on the other side of the sneaker cake, but just remember to reverse the template, basically flipping it on the other side. And as you can see, I'm just using my fingers and my fondant smoother just to make sure that all of the edges are nice and smooth, and we don't want anything to look bulky. And then I'm just taking my X-Acto to trim off all the excess fondant at the back of the sneaker cake. Now, I know that you're saying this cake looks a lot different now compared to 2 seconds ago. So off camera, I took template number 7 and I basically just scored the shape of the template into the fondant because I wanted to see how it'll look instead of adding another piece of fondant on top of it. And I really think I like this way. Right now I'm using my stitching tool and I am basically just adding 2 stitch lines to this part of the sneaker cake and also the part that we just added, which is template number 7 to the cake. I would say to keep referring back to the template package because the templates do show these stitch lines. So just keep going back and forth and you'll be on the right track. And now we've got our entire cake completely covered in fondant, and now it's time to add the sole of our sneaker. As you can see, I rolled out a long, thick piece of fondant and I am applying it to the sides, front, and the back of the cake. And then I will be using template number 6 and I will be trimming the shape of the white portion of the sole into this fondant. Once I've pretty much got that part done, I will be using my fingers and I will be massaging the edges of the sole because I want it to be as smooth as possible. Seeing that I've got one side of the sneaker pretty much done, I will be repeating the same step on the other side of the sneaker cake, but reversing the template. Next, we will be moving on to the blue portion of the sneaker sole. Now, this part is pretty much straightforward, so I don't have a part of the template package for this. So, for the front portion of the sneaker, we will be using modeling chocolate. Why modeling chocolate? Because we will be blending, and fondant is not so good when it comes to blending. So for the front portion of the sneaker cake, I already applied it to the cake. So all I did was I made a rectangular piece and then I just rounded off the top 2 sides and then I just placed it onto the cake. Referring back to the template and the picture just to see exactly how it looks and how it falls at the front of the sneaker. And then I will be taking a long piece of modeling chocolate, and then I will be pushing it into the sole on the sides of the white portion of the sneaker sole, basically just filling in the bottom portion of the sneaker sole. That's all we're doing. And then using my fingers to make sure it's nice and smooth and it's nice and seamless. And now I'm using my flexible smoother just to lift the modeling chocolate away from the cake board just a little bit, just to make sure that the cake looks hyper realistic. Once we've got that side pretty much done, we will repeat the same step on the other side of the sneaker until the entire sneaker sole is complete. Now that we've got the hard part of the sneaker sole done, it's time to move on to the easy part. So all I'm using right now is my pointers tool, and I'm just adding, you can call it lines or grooves into the sole, but you can use the reference on page 1 for this part. Once we pretty much got this side done, we will be moving on to the other side of the sneaker cake and repeat the same step. When adding the lines on this side of the sneaker cake, please leave the middle empty, because the middle we will be adding black dots to show that inner step of the foot. What do you call that part? But yeah, as you can see, I'm just using a ball tip tool and I'm just dipping it into black food coloring, and I'm just adding those dots on the inner part of the sneaker. Can you believe we are almost done? OMG. So, as you can see, I'm just adding a little water to the top portion of my cake, and I am adding my black fondant to my cake. This piece of fondant is template number 8 of the template package. So you know what to do. Roll out the fondant, cut out the template, place the template on the fondant, cut out the fondant to match the template and then stick it onto the cake. If you do have excess fondant, please use a reference on page number 1 to see exactly where does it fall in place, and then use your X-Acto like I'm doing right now just to trim the edges, and then use your finger just to massage down the edges to make sure everything is nice and smooth, and that's pretty much it. Next, we're moving on to the part that actually makes this sneaker cake the retro 11s. So for this part, off camera, I used a mini ribbon roller and I just rolled out a lot of thin strips of fondant. And all I'm doing is referring to the first page of the template package, and I'm pretty much eyeballing the placement of these thin ribbon strips. Once I've got them into place, I just cut off the excess fondant with my X-Acto, and then I will basically just roll out the top because that's where we will be adding the laces of the sneaker. Once that side is done, you know what to do. We pretty much repeat the same step on the other side. Next, I will be taking my stitching tool and I will be adding my stitch lines onto all of the fondant pieces that I just added to the cake. Make sure to refer to page 1 of the template package to see exactly where these stitch lines go. In order to create the laces for the sneaker cake, all I used is a fondant extruder that's equipped with the medium to small holes, and that's about it. So now all I'm doing is just lacing up my sneaker cake. I also added the logos onto the sneaker cake off camera. I mean, it's pretty much straightforward. You're just sticking an edible image onto the cake. Lastly, in order to get the flow shine finish onto the white portion of the sneaker, I'm using corn syrup and I'm just painting it on the entire area until it gets really shiny. There are more ways to add a flow shine onto a cake. You can also add oil, but I feel like if oil sits onto fondant for a while, then it gives it like a satin finish. So that's why I use corn syrup, because once you paint it on, it's going to stay that flow shine finish, no matter what temperature of the cake it is. But I mean, if there is another way that I could achieve this flow shine finish, please let me know in the comments. And that's about it. You've basically created a hyper-realistic Jordan Retro 11 sneaker with Gracie's cakes. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in the next one. Also, if you'd like to see another sneaker cake or a tutorial of something else, please comment below and let me know. See you in the next one. Bye.